Bombshell tonight, a TV and movie star, the beautiful Hayden Panettiere, dead. Arrests coming? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
Emergency responders arrived at an apartment complex in Greenville, South Carolina after a 911 call reported a person in cardiac arrest just before 2 p.m. on Sunday. Life support was performed, but actress Hayden Panettiere was pronounced dead at the scene.
Hey everyone, instant on for cardiac arrest. That's in Millwall, 701 Aisley Bridge Road, apartment. Mr. 1, minute 29, responding.
Aisley Bridge Road, overdose, CPR is in progress.
Hi, I'm Hayden Panettiere, and my new memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning, is available now. Read or listen on Apple Books.
Straight out to Rob Shooter joining us, star of Naughty But Nice podcast at robshooter.substack.com, and he is the author of a brand new book, which is climbing the charts on Amazon. It started with a whisper. Rob Shooter, any death such as this, of course, is a tragedy, but it's highlighted tonight. Her COD, cause of death, and why, and who enabled her death. Let's start with, who is Hayden?
Yeah, Hayden Panettiere is a child actress who went on to great success. She's been working in the business for decades. She's loved, but she's also a very interesting character because she's been very, very open about her struggles in a way that a lot of other actors and actresses are not. Her memoir came out just a few months ago, and she details how difficult it was transitioning from being a child actor into an adult actor. She detailed her substance abuse issues, her issues with alcohol. She really told the world who she was beyond the superstar, the actress that we all thought we loved.
By the time I was 5, I was on a soap opera by 4 years old, and it said it never stopped. And it was every moment on set. I didn't care about anybody else's opinion but my mom's, yeah. Because I knew that if she was unhappy with my performance in any way, that the rest of the day was going to be ruined.
Yes.
It was going to be a very bad day. I also wasn't expecting the reaction that I got, which was, "You owe me." And that's all she said. And she walked out. And part of me was like, oh, I'm relieved that it was short, like ripped the Band-Aid off. But then it was like this dark looming cloud, over my head going, what does she mean by I owe her? Mm-hmm. What form of payment is she expecting? And it was disappointing to find out that it was money. And it went from being a kid and having to imagine just that your pet passed away or something. But then as I got older, the imagery became darker and darker and darker. And the emotion that I had to hold within me in order to get those trigger tears going. And it became harder and harder to jump out of it. I didn't know where my character started and where I ended.
Oh, my stars. Hayden Panettiere describing how she was pushed and pushed and pushed and had to, as a child, conjure up images of her pet dead to evoke tears or else face the wrath of others, including her own family. From our friends at CBS and On Purpose with Jay Shetty to Eileen Reslin joining us, senior showbiz exclusives reporter, Daily Mail. What happened? Who, what, where, when, why?
Sadly, Hayden was found unresponsive on Sunday in an apartment in Greenville, South Carolina. Paramedics, they tried to perform life-saving measures, and according to the 911 dispatch call, they found that there was some cardiac arrest and a possible overdose.
Eileen Reslin, hold on right there. Eileen joining us from Daily Mail. She is their senior showbiz exclusives reporter. Why would you say cardiac arrest, potential OD? What led them on the scene, because if you misdiagnose on the scene and there is a chance to save the victim, you've screwed the pooch, because you'll be treating in an emergency critical moment. You'll be treating for the wrong thing. What made them think on the spot, oh, she's a celeb, overdose?
Well, there were two factors. First, there was an acquaintance that made a phone call that reported something along the lines of an overdose or a cardiac arrest. And then when they arrived on the scene, it's been reported from another outlet, TMZ, that they found Narcan on a mattress that had been used on an individual.
Hold on. Eileen, I want to hear every word you're saying, but you got me drinking out of the fire hydrant. You give me so many facts, and I need to analyze each one of them, because Renee Rockwell, joining me, veteran trial lawyer out of the Atlanta jurisdiction. I've seen her in action. You can find her on FB at renee.rockwell. Renee, every fact could be probative, and I've often used this example. There's a serial killer. I tried, got him on one, and one earring from the victim was in a particular location, which led me to the point of her kidnap, which is at the MARTA station downtown. That said, that one thing, she had one earring yanked out of her ear was sliced, the other earring was still on her when her body was found out in a field. One fact can change everything. For instance, Eileen Reslin just stated Narcan was found on the scene, which is, many people believe, the antidote to an overdose, like a fentanyl overdose. Isn't it true, Renee, in cases you've tried one thing, it could be a bush, all right? One time I went to a crime scene where the defense said, we saw so-and-so. I'm like, did you? And I went to the location, and there was a whole grove of bushes. You couldn't they were 6 feet tall. You couldn't possibly have seen what they said they saw, all right? So one thing can change everything.
And Nancy, you're saying something interesting. They are treating this as a homicide investigation. The police officers are going to come in, they're going to process the scene, they're going to preserve everything. They're going to take all devices, telephones, iPads, they're going to even take the Xbox and the PlayStations, and they're going to want to talk to everybody there. So, what's my advice? You better lawyer up, because they're coming for you.
You know, when you say lawyer up, you better lawyer up. Truer words were never spoken, Renee. But who are you talking about? This isn't a shooting. This isn't a stabbing, a strangulation. Who do you think should lawyer up?
Nancy, the only person that is not a suspect at this time is Hayden. Everybody that is there, everybody that was there, they're going to be pulling ring cameras. Everybody that was there all the day before, all day that day, they're going to be questioned. And they better not say anything that is untrue. In my book, they say nothing.
When you say everybody that went in, you are talking about the doorman, you're talking about a potential cleaning person, you're talking about
Everybody.
a dog walker, you're talking about an assistant, you're talking about a boyfriend. None of these people are suspects. I'm telling you, people I would be looking at. Are we talking about the same people?
Who is the facilitator? Where did the drugs come from if this is an overdose? Narcan is not going to just be on the scene, Nancy, if somebody had a reaction to some type of prescription medication, unless, of course, it had heroin or fentanyl in it. And that's what the police are going to be looking for, and a statement from somebody that could be involved.
She was corrupted by greed and lack of concern for others. These people who use drugs to have control over others, it's like they're creeping through a window in another person's house, taking the diamonds out of the safe, going and just gloating over the diamonds that they've gotten. They don't care about the house. They don't care about the people in it. They don't care about the neurobiology of addiction. And they don't really care about the wave of devastation that goes outward in this person's life. Matthew Perry had many people who love him. The public love him. It's widespread devastation that, Sonia really didn't really care about that. She just wanted her lychee martini, and that was it.
The two lead defendants in this case are defendants Salvador Plasencia and defendant Jasvin Sanya. Defendant Plasencia was a medical doctor. He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry. Sanya and the broker, defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash. She worked with a broker, defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine.
Let me refresh everyone's recollection. His high-flying luxury supplier, the so-called ketamine queen, the one you're seeing on private jets and with all of her luxury goods. I mean, look at this woman. Well, she's the devil. She and the, quote, loyal assistant who left Matthew Perry to die in his hot tub were charged. Rob Shooter, who is the ketamine queen?
Ketamine Queen came to fame for the public during the Matthew Perry case. However, people in Hollywood knew her name for a very long time. She was ultimately the number one, the most exclusive drug dealer in Hollywood. She did not deal drugs on the street. She had celebrities calling her.
Put these words in the same sentence, the most exclusive drug dealer? Did you put those in the same sentence, Shooter?
I did. Let me explain why. Let me tell you why. People on the street who wanted
you
to buy heroin...
You better talk fast. I don't care whose PR guru you are. Have you ever met Panettiere, Hayden Panettiere, the star?
Yeah, I have. I met her several times, and about 5, 6, 7 times I met her.
And what was your impression, Rob Shooter?
She was charming. She was charming. She was funny. She was witty. She was talented. She had a big heart. She was very open about all her problems. She was a little disappointed with where her career was, which is why she was meeting with people like me. She also, too, I believe, had some financial issues. There was lots of concerns about paying for her team. And so when you look at these big Hollywood stars, you think they have it all. They have a lot, but she also, too, had a lot of demons. That was very, very clear, Nancy. She had demons.
Rob, you just described a beautiful, genuine, talented woman with all sorts of problems that everyday people face. Money problems, your self-esteem problems, your fear you're failing at your work problems, worried about your future, your children's future. She's a mom, problems. Now, with that backdrop, Rob Shooter, I don't care what bestseller you just wrote, what it started with a whisper. You just talked about all the wonderful things and the insecurities of Hayden Panettiere, now dead. And you put it right after a sentence with the most exclusive Hollywood drug dealer. Exclusive and drug dealer should not be in the same sentence. Hayden Panettiere is dead. And I want to know how she got that way. No, there's nothing exclusive about that, Shooter.
We need to look very closely at the people, the institutions, the businesses that are providing drugs to celebrities in Hollywood. And we have to make the distinction between people who are selling drugs on the street and people who are turning up in BMWs and Ferraris and selling these drugs to celebrities. There is a different type of dealer involved here. We're looking at her. And that's what makes this problem so difficult. She had access to the Golden Globes. This person we're looking at here, this devil, this ketamine queen, was at the Oscars. She had Gucci and Prada bags. None of this makes her any better, but it gives her access to celebrities and to the world of Hollywood that people like you and me, Nancy, probably would not get in.
You know who she is, Shooter? You know who the ketamine queen is? She is the devil. She is Beelzebub, and she's got on a mask that many people believe is beautiful. I mean, Renee Rockwell, your expertise, I don't know a nice way to say this, is dope. You don't represent child molesters. You don't typically represent rapists. You represent dopers, big dopers. And you know what? All this coulda, woulda, shoulda. I agree with Shooter. We should, we could, we would. But realistically, Renee, how many suppliers, enablers like Ketamine Queen and the loyal assistant have you ever seen prosecuted on a homicide charge? Name them. I bet you can do it on one hand.
How about Michael Jackson?
That's a good one. Listen to this.
The evidence in this case will show that Michael Jackson trusted his life to the medical skills of Conrad Murray. That misplaced trust cost Michael Jackson his life.
You're on cross-examination. Who is our next sponsor? Well, here is a probative clue. Meow. Smalls makes fresh human-grade food designed for cats to thrive, while Big Pet Food uses cheap filler. Smalls features 80% animal protein and zero artificial junk. 88% of cat parents report better digestion, softer fur, and more energy for their cats to play. It's a healthy investment your cat will love. If you want to invest in your cat's health, Smalls is giving you 60% off your cat's first order. 60% off plus free shipping and free treats for life when you go to smalls.com/Nancy. SMALLS, smalls.com/Nancy. 60% off your first order, free shipping, and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/Nancy. Thanks, Smalls, and thank you from our cat, Cinnamon. To Eileen Reslin joining us, the senior showbiz exclusives reporter, Daily Mail. Eileen, I want to hear about what was found at the scene, because just like Matthew Perry, he's in a hot tub. There's nothing suspicious about that. He's in a hot tub, he got submerged, he died. But investigation, based on what was found at the scene, revealed he had been enabled to take an overdose of ketamine. And that's why he went under, right? Tell me about the scene with Hayden Panettiere.
At this point, we have very limited information. What we do know is that there was Narcan on the scene. So clearly there were signs of opioid overdose. But there hasn't been a suspect that has been named. They've said that there's no foul play and that there were no signs of trauma. So there is an investigation that's ongoing, but right now they're not looking at it as a criminal investigation.
Eileen, when Matthew Perry was found dead, there were no signs of trauma. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
Okay, so you are familiar with multiple felony cases and investigations into the death of Matthew Perry, right? You know about those, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's great that they are starting to prosecute more drug dealers like the ketamine queen that you mentioned. But I do want to point out that unfortunately that's not always the case and they're not always successful, because for instance with Demi Lovato, they tried to prosecute her dealer and that went nowhere. So I think that at that point they reported it as a medical induced or self-induced medical emergency. So I think it's really case by case. So it will be interesting to see how the local police department handles this particular case with Hayden.
Eileen, I really appreciate your legal analysis and your investigative prowess. However, when I find a dead body, I don't just assume there's no foul play, okay? That's completely completely irresponsible. To Dave Mack joining me, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Who, what, where, when, why? Where was she found? When was she found? Give me the circumstances. What was found at the scene? Was anybody there? Help me out, Dave. Throw me a bone.
This happened in Greenville, South Carolina at the Judson Mill Lofts. This is a building complex that had been a textile mill converted into apartments and living quarters that were used for Airbnb purposes. This took place on the afternoon of Sunday when a 911 call is made reporting an unresponsive woman in cardiac arrest. Responders attempted resuscitation, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. At the scene, it's been reported that there was Narcan on the bed. It was a chaotic scene. One of the neighbors said that the walls are so thin you could hear what was taking place, and there was a lot of yelling and screaming back and forth. But beyond that, it's pretty limited as to what we know. Now, the 911 dispatch, Nancy, when it came in at first as a woman in cardiac arrest, there was a reference to an apparent overdose, and this was made at the same time during that 911 call. This has not been established as an official cause of death. The toxicology still has to be done. An autopsy has been performed, but no toxicology yet. She was in Greenville, South Carolina with her on and off again boyfriend, Brian Hickerson. He's from Greenville, South Carolina, and she had a co-star from the TV show Nashville who was actually performing in Greenville, South Carolina Friday night, and probably went to see him. That's why they were there. They just arrived on Thursday afternoon, and then this happened on Sunday.
Eileen Reslin is correct, joining us from Daily Mail. Panettiere found dead at a Greenville, South Carolina apartment. Authorities say at the time cardiac arrest and no signs of foul play. She's absolutely correct. But the reality is, to Dr. Thomas Coyne, renowned medical examiner joining us out of Tallahassee, he is the District 8 medical examiner for the state of Florida. He is a toxicologist, a forensic pathologist, and a neuropathologist. Right now, we're still arguing about the MOD, manner of death, not cause of death, of Jeffrey Epstein. How long ago was that? People are convinced either he committed suicide or he was murdered, largely because of the marking on his neck, which is not consistent with a suicide. I'm just telling you, it's not consistent with a suicide. A suicide strangulation, asphyxiation, would be in the shape of a smiley face when you hang yourself. This was straight across his neck, much more consistent with someone strangling him from behind. That said, Eileen Reslin, Daily Mail, was correct. They found no signs of foul play. There were no signs of foul play in the Matthew Perry case. No signs of foul play in the Michael Jackson case. It goes on and on. No signs of foul play, and for Pete's sake, the Elvis Presley death. But there were investigations, right? So when everybody keeps screaming no signs of foul play, that means nothing to me.
It's something we typically say in these types of cases. It just lets the public know that there's no obvious trauma, no obvious murder that may have occurred. But in these cases, especially overdose cases, the answer isn't present at the autopsy. And so it takes weeks to obtain toxicology results. And so therefore, in the meantime, you do your best to sort of try to provide answers while at the same time being respectful for the loved ones who are also at home waiting for those answers as well.
The autopsy itself is done on Hayden Panettiere.
Mm-hmm.
How long will it take me to get tox?
It varies. If you have an in-house toxicology lab, you can get preliminary results sometimes within a week, but it may take 4 to 8 weeks to get toxicology testing back. Most medical examiners' offices send their toxicology to an outside toxicology lab, and just depending upon volume, that could stretch out to that 8-week time point, especially if there are unique drugs that are present. So, for instance, we talked about fentanyl, but sometimes there are fentanyl analogs or novel synthetic drugs, and so that may stretch the time frame a little longer. So it really depends. But I always tell people when they're asking for tox, 4 to 6 weeks.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. If you are a homeowner, you've probably thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this debt? But you don't because of your low mortgage rate. That low rate, it's not saving you if you're drowning in credit card interest. People are calling American Financing, and American Financing is saving customers an average of $800. That's not in all, that's a month, by using their equity to pay off the credit card debt. Using their home equity to pay off credit card debt. No upfront fees. It costs you nothing to find out what you could be saving. And if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. American Financing, 866-888-0344. Repeat, 866-888-0344. Or just go online to americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Disclaimer, NMLS 182334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, APR for rates in the 5S start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 866-888-0344 for details about credit costs and terms. Go to http:// www.americanfinancing.net/Nancy. Average savings are based on borrowers who save over $199.99. And good luck. Why is Hayden Panettiere dead? To Eileen Reslin, doesn't she have a child?
She does. She has a child with Vladimir Klitschko, who lives in the Ukraine with Kaya, their daughter. And when she gave birth, she actually suffered from postpartum depression, Hayden. So it was actually a really heartbreaking situation for her.
And I had a really rough birth, to the point where I almost didn't make it through.
Yes.
And then the postpartum depression started. And there I am with this beautiful, healthy, beautiful baby girl and this very fortunate life. And I could not for the life of me be happy. I was so depressed. And when I actually went out onto stage, it was live with Kelly and Michael, I had no intention of or plan to talk about postpartum depression. It just came up and I was just being honest, and never for a second did I think that anyone or care that anyone would have a bad reaction to it. It was my truth. And so when I got that call that Neutrogena wanted to fire me over that, and my representative at the time said, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Wow. You're saying that from On Purpose with Jay Shetty. That's Hayden speaking about what happened after her postpartum depression. When she dared to speak out about it, she was threatened with losing a sponsor. And that was also from our friends at CBS. Karen Stark, we're looking at Hayden Panettiere in these interviews, and people are used to seeing her in Heroes, the hit program. Just too much to even name. She was a star in A Bug's Life, which was one of my children's favorites, remember? Look at all this. We see her that way, but she's talking about her real life and what she was overcoming. For Pete's sake, Karen Starr, you're a forensic psychologist, you're a TV, radio expert. It seems like everyone was taking advantage of her and enabling her. And she's got a child, a little girl to think about. now she's gone.
Everyone was taking advantage of her, and I'm not surprised. Are you, Nancy? Because she's a celebrity, and in addition to it, she was a child star, so that her life was led by adults. She talked about the first time that anyone even gave her a drug was when she was a child. So she didn't even have a choice to begin with. It's a terrible story, a really terrible story, because it's so easy. When you're a child, you're not developmentally grown enough to be taking drugs and understand that there should be limits, or whether it becomes associated with a better performance, which was what happened. And it's very clear, if you keep reading about her, that she wanted her daughter. She loved her daughter, but she had an illness. That's what happened. She had postpartum depression and was being treated for it. So her story is awful, just awful, because you can see where everyone was pandering to her and hurting her just because of her fame and wanting to please this person who didn't have any limits.
Somehow, every time I found the strength to get away from my abusers, they would always find their way back into my life one way or another. It was like being on a hamster wheel in this endless, dizzying cycle. And the craziest part and the hardest part was to understand was that the physical abuse would come out of left field, but it was always when he was drinking, same as my mom. We could be dancing and joking, and then a switch would flip and suddenly it was on. Something would snap, and it was like watching a predator suddenly smell blood. I was dealing with this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. It was led by somebody that I had grown to trust and see as a protector and somebody who had my back. She physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous and had his hands like this, like this was just, an average day for him. This is something that happens all the time. I was like, this is not happening.
I had no short stories to share with them, and it was almost like my brain was blocking out these large chunks of time because of trauma, and that's how my brain protected me.
You are hearing from our friends at On Purpose with Jay Shetty and our friends at ABC. Karen Stark, we see, according to Hayden Panettiere, her being enabled and abused by a parade of people in her life. What is that characteristic that you may not realize you're doing it, but you seek out that with which you are familiar? You go from one abuser to the next abuser, and you think, why me? Why does this keep happening to me? Like, you see someone put in the bed with an adult male naked, and then, according to her, to an abusive relationship, and now she's dead. What is that characteristic, Karen Stark?
There's a lot of things at play here, Nancy. First of all, you become used to the abuse, but you're not looking for pain, you're looking to resolve it. You keep searching and looking for a way to make it be better, to work it out. In addition to which, it's a pattern which is very addictive, because the person goes from, just as she was describing, being terrific, wonderful caretaking, to horrifying, scary, and then coming back again and being that wonderful person. And you're longing for the person, the good person, and for the bad person to disappear. And it's a trap. It keeps happening over and over again. It's like intermittent reinforcement, when you never know what you're going to get that's good. So you keep striving to get it to work out. And that's what has happened to her in relationships. She's used to it, and she can't break the pattern. She recognizes it. And isn't that the saddest part? That intellectually you understand what's going on, and yet you can't get out of it.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories and stream it first on Fox 1. When breaking crime news develops, we investigate it and bring it to you. Bombshell updates, answers to unanswered questions from cases making the headlines and cases you may never have heard of until Crime Stories. We go inside investigations with exclusive interviews, crime victims, families seeking justice, investigators, experts, and sources from within the case itself. Stay on top of the nation's biggest trials with us, including gavel-to-gavel coverage with real-time analysis. Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Stream it first on Fox 1. I hope to see you there, and thank you, friend.
Was Hayden Panettiere enabled? Who gave her the fatal overdose? Why was Narcan out? These are questions that must be answered, and I think I would start with whoever was supplying her, much like in the case of Matthew Perry.
She's wearing her intentions. That watch, that beautiful top, that Hermes bag, that is the blood of her clients. The blood of her clients, Nancy. I think it's easy to glamorize along with her that she has these beautiful outfits and the shoes and this, that, and the other. She has sucked this money, as so many people do with addicts, out of her client to their death. She was going out selling one more vial and one more vial to go out and buy one more Hermes bag or Gucci pair of shoes, or, she was just really satisfying her own greed. And what makes me so sad, Nancy, is that people suffering from substance abuse disorders are extraordinarily vulnerable. Matthew Perry was vulnerable. He was chasing that next high. His brain was craving the addiction.
Renee Rockwell joining me, criminal defense attorney, a specialist in big drug defense. The glamorizing of the supplier seemingly is working because I very rarely see that kind of prosecution. Do you think it's possible in this case?
It is, Nancy. And with all the public outcry and with the attention, the police department is working now, trying to figure out the ones that surrounded her. The facilitator does not have to be an outsider, Nancy. It could be someone in the house.
To Dr. Thomas Coyne joining us, the District 8 medical examiner in the state of Florida. What, if anything, would she have experienced in an OD death?
Generally speaking, if this is a fentanyl death, the overdose happens fairly quickly. I've had people who have been found literally standing at a sink after dosing with fentanyl. And so their sudden loss of consciousness can occur within seconds. And after that, if the person's unconscious, what usually leads to death is that slow, continuous decrease in breathing as your lungs are filling up with fluid, which could lead to a sudden stopping of breathing, or your heart could stop. But if they're taking a drug like fentanyl, even ketamine, they're anesthetic agents, and so they're used in a hospital setting to induce rapid anesthesia. So a person can have a sudden feeling of rapid euphoria followed by unconsciousness.
Karen Stark, forensic psychologist, another angle of her death is that very often when we see OD cases, the child grows up blaming the dead parent. And the dead parent is so enabled and so under the addiction, they can't stop. And nobody's stopping them. And the child grows up with this profound sense of loss, of what could have been if mommy hadn't been an addict. I guess that's easier to blame somebody than try to understand what really happened.
Now, that would be more therapeutic if you tried to understand what really happened. But if you think about this happening to a child, Nancy, children always blame themselves. So there's that whole added part that mommy is not okay and I'm doing something wrong. Sort of like what was happening with Hayden Panettiere, with her mother, wanting to please her all the time. And so it's it happens where you can actually investigate, understand the terrible things that happened to your parent that might have influenced you, but you would need somebody to help you and point it out, like a therapist. On your own, there's a good chance you wouldn't be doing that kind of investigation. You'd be too caught up in your own blame and confusion, misinformation.
If you know or think you know anything about the death of TV and movie star Hayden Panettiere, also a mother of a little girl, dial Greenville Crime Stoppers 864-232-7463. Repeat, 864-232-7463. We remember American hero Deputy Sheriff Jeremy Malone, George County Sheriff's, Mississippi, shot and killed in the line of duty after 23 years on the force, leaving behind a wife, now widow, Hillary, and daughters, Abby, Olivia, and Brooklyn. American hero, Deputy Sheriff Jeremy Malone. Thanks to our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight. Nancy Grace signing off. But I'll see you tomorrow night, and until then, good night, friend. Hi, guys. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. And if you're on the go, please join us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all our content, where we, in our way, seek justice.